The brick weighed 4 kilograms. Kim Doyen learned this later. More precisely, never learned it, because the investigator drawing up the report was speaking to an empty body, not a person. But had he learned it, he would have appreciated the irony. 4 kilograms, 22 meters of height. Physics is indifferent to whether you were reading your phone at that moment or looking at the sky. Doyen was reading his phone. The article was called 10 Signs You Are Not Living Your Own Life. He stumbled upon it by accident, in his feed, between an ad for a protein shake and a news item about the won exchange rate. He managed to read 3 points out of 10. The third one was, you do what is expected of you, not what you want yourself. He was just thinking that the third point was about him when the sky fell on his head. Not metaphorically, literally, darkness came instantly. No pain, no white light, no panorama of years lived. He simply was, and then ceased to be. Clean, like a light switch, and then he was again. Only in a completely different way. There was no body. There was no up or down. There was nothing except damp cold from all sides and the strange sensation that he was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere, smeared across space like a drop of oil on water, thin, formless, without edges. The first thought was not panic and not fear. The first thought was, I feel something, which means I exist, which means we'll figure it out. This was a very characteristic thought for Kim Doyen. He was an analyst at a small logistics company, a man who received chaotic data, put it on shelves, and found patterns where others saw only noise. Panic interfered with analysis. Analysis interfered with panic. He always chose analysis, so he began with an inventory. Body exists, but non-standard. Movement possible. Slow, the whole mass at once. Vision blurry, diffuse. More a sense of space than a picture. Hearing. Vibrations transmitted through the surface of contact with the ground. Touch. The entire body surface simultaneously. Damp, cold, stone beneath him and something soft. He was in a cave. Small, judging by the way vibrations reflected off the walls. Dark. Almost no heat sources, only far ahead, something weakly pulsed with an orange spot through murky perception. Then a notification came. Not a sound, not a light, just information, appearing in consciousness the way a forgotten word suddenly remembered appears. Awakening system activated. Host, Kim Doyen, Class A, mind in a Class G body. Creature, common cave slime. Rank, lowest. Attack, 0. Defense, 0. Speed, minimal. Intelligence, animal by default. Critical anomaly recorded. Compensation protocol launched. Unique skill assigned, limit analysis. The host is capable, upon visual or tactile contact with a creature, of precisely determining its characteristics, vulnerabilities, and limit of capabilities. The accuracy of analysis increases with observation time. Skill is permanently active, requires no activation. Evolution condition. Victory over a creature surpassing the host in rank. The greater the class difference, the more progress is credited. Victory over an equal, plus 5%. Victory over a creature 1 rank higher, plus 25%. Victory over a creature 2 ranks higher, plus 60%. 3 or more ranks. Counts as completion of evolution. Current progress, 0%. Kim Doyen read to the end. Then mentally returned to the beginning and reread it again calmly, as one reads a technical document. He highlighted the key points. Weak enemy, small progress. Strong enemy, fast growth. The system encourages risky fights, not methodical farming of small fry. Understood, he thought. The system is designed for adventurism. But adventurism without analysis is just death with a running start. So first we analyze, then we take risks. He crawled forward, toward where the orange heat spot was. The cave opened gradually. The perception of slime was far from human vision, but he quickly learned to interpret it. Vibrations formed a map of the space. Heat spots indicated living creatures. Chemical traces on the stone surface told who had walked here and how long ago. He didn't know exactly what he was perceiving, but the system, or his own brain, adapting, translated it into comprehensible images. The orange spot turned out to be a rat. Not an ordinary one. 3 times larger than any rat he had ever seen in his life, with coarse reddish fur and long claws leaving furrows in stone. It sat by a small puddle and drank, not noticing him or not considering him a threat. Which made sense. He was a slime the size of a fist. The skill triggered automatically. Data appeared without effort on his part. Cave Claw Rat. Rank F+. Attack. Claws. Bite. Defense. Dense fur, quick retreat reflex. Weak points. Belly. Fur is thin, skin is soft. Eyes, practically blind in bright light. Tail, reflex zone, sharp impact causes disorientation. Progress upon victory, plus 35%. 35% for one rat. He was Class G, she was Class F+. 2 ranks of difference. That was a lot for a first fight. Doyen watched the rat for a long time. Methodically, it drank. Sometimes it raised its head, moved its nose, dropped back to the water. Rhythm. 6 seconds drinking, 2 seconds listening. 6-2. 6-2. Predictable. I have no attack, he thought. No speed. No defense. What do I have? Shape. I can spread out. I can envelop. If I cover the airways, it will suffocate. Theoretically. Practically, it will scent me before that and tear me apart with its claws. He waited another 5 minutes, studied, then noticed something. When the rat drank, it lowered its muzzle deep enough into the water. Its eyes went below the surface for a fraction of a second. In those fractions of a second, it was blind. There was the window. He began moving along the wall, not along the floor, along the wall, slowly, almost imperceptibly. The slime clung to the stone without sound. He rose to a level slightly above the puddle, flattened into a thin layer, almost invisible in the cave's darkness. Waited. The rat lowered its muzzle into the water. Doyen fell downward. He didn't jump. He simply released his grip on the wall and let gravity do the work. He landed precisely on the rat's head, instantly spreading out, blocking nostrils, mouth, eyes. The rat shot up, sharply, powerfully, claws scraping on stone. Doyen felt it thrashing beneath him, trying to shake him off as the claws tore at his body. The slime ripped apart, losing chunks, but each chunk continued to cling, stretch back, fill the gaps. It was painful. He hadn't expected slime to have pain sensitivity, but it was there. Blunt, distributed, like the pain of a burn across the entire skin at once. The rat thrashed for 30 seconds, then 20. Then the movements slowed. Then convulsions. Then silence. Doyen lay atop the motionless body and heavily, insofar as slime is capable of breathing heavily, gathered himself back into a single mass. Several pieces of his body were scattered within a half-meter radius. He collected them methodically, like picking up scattered coins. The notification appeared while he was gathering himself. Victory. Target. Cave Claw Rat. Rank F+. Rank difference, 2 classes. Evolution progress, plus 35%. Current progress. 35 out of 100. 35%. 1 fight. A third of the way to the first evolution. He looked at the dead rat. Then the system added something new. A line that hadn't been there before. Additional function unlocked. Absorption. The host may absorb the biomass of defeated creatures. Absorption provides minor restoration of body volume and a random fragment of physiological data of the target. Accumulation of data on a species through repeated absorption may unlock passive adaptations. Absorption. He began. And this too turned out to be a strange sensation. Not unpleasant. Just strange. The rat's body slowly dissolved where he touched it with his surface, going inward the way water goes into the ground. After a minute, only coarse fur and bones remained from the claw rat, what the slime could not dissolve. But the volume of his body had grown, insignificantly, roughly by a third, but noticeably. And another line came. Data fragment received. Dense fur. Accumulated. 1 of 10. Upon accumulation of 10 fragments of one species, partial adaptation is possible. Interesting, thought Doyen. So if I absorb enough of one species, I'll get its properties. This changes the strategy. Not just victory for progress, but absorption for adaptation. He sat in the cave's darkness over the bones of his first victim and thought. Methodically, without haste, as always. He was building a picture of the system. Two vectors of development, fast evolutions through dangerous enemies, and slow adaptations through repeated absorption of the weak. The first gave qualitative leaps. The second, gradual strengthening between leaps. I need both, he decided. But first, the next evolution. Let's see what it gives. He crawled deeper into the cave. What he found an hour later became his first real test. The cave expanded into a large hall, not natural. Tool marks were visible in the walls. Someone had worked here once. Old torch holders on the walls, rusty, long without fire. Remnants of wooden structures, rotten, crumbling. An abandoned mine or warehouse, long deserted by people, but not empty. In the center of the hall, on a pile of old bones, sat a spider. Doyen watched it for a long time, not out of fear, but out of respect for the data the skill was providing. The spider was large. Legs span about a meter, body dark gray, almost black, with a pattern on its abdomen resembling cracks in the earth. 8 eyes reflected the faint light seeping in from somewhere above. It wasn't moving, but its stillness was not sleepy. It was sentinel. It was waiting. The skill's data came in detail. Cave Dark Spider, rank E. Attack. Venomous bites. Venom of paralyzing type. Takes effect 20 seconds after entering biomass. Web. Exceptional strength, dissolves only in acid or fire. Speed. High for its size, lunge to a distance of up to 3 meters is instantaneous. Defense. Chitinous shell on head and chest. High durability. Abdomen. Soft, vulnerable. Weakness. The spider reacts to vibration, not visual contact. A motionless target is not a target for it. Progress upon victory, plus 65%. 65. Together with 35 from the rat, 100%. This was the first evolution if he won. If the spider was Class E, Doyen was Class G, 3 ranks of difference. Venom that paralyzes. Web that can't be dissolved. A lunge of 3 meters, instantaneous. He crawled back into the tunnel and thought for 20 minutes. The venom works through biomass. I'm slime. I have no nervous system that can be paralyzed. The venom might simply not work, or work differently. That's an advantage. The web dissolves in acid. I have no acid. Yet. The spider reacts to vibration, so if I create no vibrations, it doesn't notice me. Slime moves across stone almost silently. The abdomen is soft. Strategy: approach along the ceiling. No web there, the spider sets it at floor level. Fall onto the abdomen. Don't try to suffocate it. It's too large, the legs will shake me off before that. Target. Abdomen. Penetrate inside through the soft tissue. This is unpleasant. But it's the only way for a creature with no attack to defeat a creature with armor. He looked at the ceiling. High, about 3.5 meters. Uneven, with protrusions. Enough surfaces to crawl across. Doyen began climbing the wall. Slowly, each movement precise. The slime clung well to the stone. He climbed to the ceiling, flattened into a thin layer, almost invisible, and began moving over the hall. The spider below did not react. 8 eyes gazed into the space, legs occasionally twitching, feeling the web for trapped prey. Doyen hung directly above the abdomen. Looked down. Distance, 3.5 meters. If the spider manages to react to the fall before he reaches the target, it's over. The spider's lunge is faster than his fall. Need to be heavier, he thought. Gather all the mass into one point. Don't splash on impact. Strike in a concentrated manner. He had never tried this before. But he tried it now. Compressed himself as much as he could, pulled the diffuse mass into a dense lump. It became harder to cling to the ceiling. The concentrated mass pulled downward more strongly. The ceiling began to release him. He let go himself. The fall took less than a second. The spider reacted, Doyon saw the legs tense instantly, saw the body begin to turn. But it was too late by a third of a second. The concentrated slime mass struck the abdomen with a force even Doyon hadn't expected from himself. The soft tissue gave way, and he began penetrating inside before the spider finished turning. What followed was unpleasant to describe even in internal monologue. The spider thrashed. Hard. Its legs hammered against its own abdomen, trying to reach what was inside. The venom. Doyon felt it, yes, a burning chemical blow across the surface of his body inside the spider. But the system was right. The paralyzing venom did not work on slime the way it would on a nervous system. It burned. It eroded part of the biomass, but it didn't stop him. Doyon pressed from within, expanding, filling the space, tearing the soft tissue methodically, without hurrying. The spider thrashed for a minute, then two, then more weakly. Then it went still. Silence in the cave was absolute. Victory. Target. Cave Dark Spider, Rank E. Rank difference 3 classes. Evolution progress, plus 65%. Total progress, 100%. Evolution available. Host, you have reached the first threshold. Choose your evolutionary path. Doyon slowly emerged from what remained of the spider and gathered himself back. Looked at the result of his work, without pride, without disgust. Simply noted it. Available evolutionary paths. First, Hunter Slime, Rank F. Increase in movement speed, formation of primitive pseudopods for grasping a target. Specialization, maneuverability, and capture. Second, Armored Slime, Rank F. Formation of a hard outer shell from absorbed mineral substances. Specialization, defense, resistance to physical damage. Third, Mimic Slime, Rank F+, unique path. The body acquires the ability to copy the texture, color, and partially the shape of surfaces and objects. Basic level of camouflage. Compatibility with the limit analysis. Skill. High. Note. This path is the foundation for subsequent development of the form absorption skill. System recommends. Doyon read the descriptions twice. Hunter. Speed and capture. Useful. Armored. Defense. Also useful. Mimic. Camouflage plus a foundation for form absorption. Form absorption, he paused on this. The system hints that the third path leads somewhere specific. To the ability to take on another's appearance. This isn't just a combat advantage. This is the path back to human society. At some point. When I'm ready. The choice was obvious. Third, he directed his intention to the system. The evolution was faster than he expected. Not painful, more like the feeling of a numbed leg suddenly beginning to feel again. The body changed. He felt it as an expansion of capabilities. He tried lying on the stone beside the spider's body. The surface of his body changed color and texture. Became grayish-brown, uneven, almost indistinguishable from the cave floor. He looked at his own boundary. It was barely visible. Mimic Slime, Rank F+. Camouflage skill active. When completely motionless, detection by visual means is practically impossible. When moving, detection is impeded. Next evolution threshold, 100%. Current progress, 0 out of 100. 0 again. A new starting point. But now he had camouflage. And a skill that analyzes any enemy. And an understanding of his one true strength. Not physical power, but the ability to think where other creatures act instinctively. Doyon examined the hall with fresh attention. He began absorbing the spider methodically. The system logged data fragments one after another. Chitin fragment, 1 of 10. Venom gland. Fragment, 1 of 10. Future adaptations. Seeds that would sprout later. Then he found a ladder in the corner of the hall, or rather, what remained of it. Rotten wooden steps led up into a narrow gap in the ceiling. Daylight, faint, diffuse, seeped from above. An exit. Doyon stared at it for a long time. Up there was a world he knew nothing about yet. People, adventurers, cities, everything that the logic of a fantasy world implied. He would get there, but not now. Now he was slime the size of a fist, class F+, with zero progress toward the next evolution. There was no rush, but there was plenty to think about. He returned to the tunnels. The following weeks, he stopped counting days, slime had no circadian rhythm and time flowed differently, turned into methodical work. He had fully explored the cave system. It turned out to be larger than it had seemed at first. Several levels connected by narrow passages, each with its own ecosystem. On the first level, small fry like clawrats and beetles. On the second, creatures of a higher class. On the third, where he had not yet ventured. From there, vibrations occasionally reached him that the skill identified as danger. Rank D and above, not recommended. He worked methodically. He planned every fight as an operation. He never attacked without full analysis of the target. He never risked on the unknown, only on calculated risk. On the second level, he found stone lizards. Class E, slow, armored. With one critical weakness, the skill flagged immediately. Their eyes were the only unprotected spot on their bodies. He defeated the first one on the third attempt. The first two ended in his retreat with damage. The third, with the understanding that the strike needed to be delivered not from outside, but by penetrating the eye socket from within. Unpleasant, effective. Progress grew. After every victory over a creature 2 or 3 ranks above, a jump of 40, 50, 60%. After small fry, 5, 8. He preferred the former. The second evolution came after what subjectively felt like 3 weeks. This time there were more paths. 5 instead of 3. He read each description twice and chose what the system again marked as the unique path. Slime Absorber, rank E, development of the absorption skill. The host may now absorb not only biomass but also simple organic structures entirely, retaining their fragmentary form inside itself for a short time. Foundation for subsequent development. Absorption of complex biological forms. Absorption of complex forms. He understood where this was leading. By the third evolution, the slime absorber had become a slime imitator. Rank D, ability to reproduce simple organic forms on the body's surface. He could now temporarily take the shape of any small creature he had absorbed enough of. Not perfectly. The texture was unclear, the movements clumsy, but the shape was recognizable. He practiced on the dead bodies of creatures he defeated. He spent hours studying anatomy through absorption. How limbs worked, how weight was distributed, how a skeleton was structured. The analysis skill helped. When he absorbed a creature, data about its physiology accumulated automatically. By the fourth evolution, he was class C-. And then, on the third level of the cave, he found a body. A human body. An adventurer. Obvious from the equipment. Leather armor with metal plates, a short sword in a sheath at the belt, an empty trophy sack. Male, young, about 25 by appearance. Dead for several days, judging by the condition. Died from wounds. 3 deep cuts on the chest, clearly from the claws of something large. Doyen looked at the body for a long time. The analysis skill worked on the dead too. It showed physiology, structure, particularities. A human body. Familiar. In that life, he had had one himself. Bipedal, upright, with hands and a voice, and everything that allowed one to exist in human society. The system added a new line. For the first time in a long while, something new without an evolution. Possibility detected. The host has reached class C-. The absorption skill is developed sufficiently for absorption of a complex biological form. Upon full absorption of a sentient creature, the host gains the ability to reproduce its appearance for a period of up to 8 hours. Limitation. The appearance is unstable under strong physical or magical impact. Warning. This ability requires significant energy expenditure. After use, recovery period, 12 hours. 8 hours in human form. Enough to enter a city. Scout. Leave before the time runs out. Doyen absorbed the adventurer's body slowly. Several hours. It was the strangest and most important thing he had done since his rebirth. Data accumulated. Not just physiological, but surface level too. Facial features, skin color, height, proportions. The system was building a model. When the absorption was complete, a notification came. Form absorbed. Human male, 23 to 26 years, height 178 centimeters. Characteristic features preserved. Transformation available on command. Doyen tried it. This was the best sensation in all his time in this world. The body assembled from the bottom up, legs, torso, arms, head, as if he were putting on a suit from the inside. Skin, muscles, bones, everything in place. He stood up, swayed, unaccustomed after months of life without verticality, and held steady. He raised his hands, looked at his fingers. Human. His. Not his, but known. But familiar. Good, he said aloud. The voice came out foreign. The voice of the dead adventurer, not his own. But a voice. He took the equipment. The armor fit, almost the right size. He picked up the sword in his right hand, awkwardly. He had never learned to fence, but that could be fixed. He slung the empty sack over his shoulder, then thought and left the sword. He didn't know how to use it. It would only reveal his inexperience. Better an unarmed traveler than a clumsy swordsman. He exited the cave through the upper exit. The world outside greeted him with an afternoon sun and the smell of pine. Forest. Dense. Alive. Nothing at all like the stone darkness of the cave. Somewhere far off beyond the trees, smoke rose. Many plumes, even, the way it is above a settlement. Doyen. No, he was already thinking of a new name. The dead adventurer's name didn't fit, too tied to a specific identity. Walked through the forest toward the smoke and thought. He needed a name, needed a story, needed to understand how this world worked before meeting it face to face. 8 hours wasn't much for a full reconnaissance, but it was enough for a first look. He stopped at a stream, looked at his reflection. A foreign face, sharp cheekbones, dark hair, ordinary brown eyes. Nothing remarkable. Exactly what he needed. Ray, he said to the reflection. Not a Korean name. Korean names didn't work here. This was a different world with different names. Short, neutral, easy to pronounce. Ray. The reflection looked back. Doyen, Ray, nodded to himself and walked toward the smoke. The city was called Hansel. Small, commercial, at the confluence of two rivers. He understood this even on approach from the smell of water and the noise of the market. The gates were open. A guard at the entrance was lazily checking incoming carts. He barely glanced at a lone pedestrian without weapons, nodded and waved his hand. Go on through. Ray went through. The first thing he did was stop at the first wall and simply look at the city. Streets, signs, people, many people, different, alive, loud. Not just heat spots in the darkness of a cave. Real ones. After months of solitude among stone and monsters, it was almost deafening. Then he began to observe, professionally, like an analyst, not like a tourist. Adventurers stood out immediately. They were everywhere. In the tavern to the left with a crossed sword's crest above the door, at the bulletin board in the center of the square, in small groups on the streets. Equipment varied, from worn leather to gleaming metal. Conversations loud, confident, with professional jargon he could only partially catch. Dungeon, rank, trophy, contract, guild. The Adventurers Guild building stood on the main square. Solid, stone, with the same crossed swords emblem above the entrance, only large and official. A big board hung at the entrance with papers, contracts, assignments, announcements. Ray stood at the board and read, slowly, getting used to the local writing. It resembled what he had seen in the cave on old plaques, generally readable. Contracts for exterminating monsters, finding the missing, escorting trading caravans, clearing dungeons. And one announcement separately, on red paper, clearly more important than the rest. He read it twice, making sure he'd understood correctly. The Great Crown Arena. Open tournament for adventurers of all ranks. Held once every 5 years in the capital, Asong. The winner receives the title of Crown Champion, a land grant, eternal glory, and a personal audience with His Majesty. For participants of rank S and above, an additional prize at the discretion of the royal family. Registration is open. Until the start of the tournament, 3 months. Ray read the line "additional prize at the discretion of the royal family" and thought that in fantasy worlds, such wording usually meant one specific thing. He didn't know the details yet, but 3 months was a time frame that could be used. First time seeing the red announcement? The voice came from the side. Female, with a light mockery. Ray turned. A girl stood nearby. Short, about 10 centimeters shorter than him. Hair the color of copper with silver streaks, braided carelessly. Ears pointed, slightly longer than human, with thin silver rings. Eyes amber, with a vertical pupil like a cat's. Tail, fluffy, orange with a white tip, swayed slightly at her feet. Light leather armor, 2 short blades behind her back, the confident, relaxed posture of someone for whom unfamiliar adventurers had long ceased to be a threat. The skill reacted automatically. The data came before he had consciously activated it. Creature, half fox, female, approximate age 20 to 25 years. Class, B-. Specialization, speed, and dual blades. Affinity. Wind, traces of magic on blades. Strike speed, enhancement. Weaknesses, ranged combat, heavy attacks. Character by behavioral markers. Direct, somewhat overconfident, concealed curiosity. Class B-. In his current form, an ordinary human with no visible characteristics, he was nobody to her. At least twice as weak, at minimum. First time in Hansel, he answered. What arena? The girl raised an eyebrow. Surprised or approving, he didn't understand. You're seriously asking? She stood beside him, looked at the announcement. The Crown Arena. Once every 5 years. The biggest tournament on the continent. People come from all ends. A pause. Are you an adventurer? Thinking of starting, he said carefully. Thinking of starting, she repeated with the same light mockery, but not unkind. More like how one repeats an amusing phrase without offense. Without a guild card? Without a rank? Without anything. She looked at him for a few seconds. Amber eyes studied him, keenly, professionally. The tail swayed once. I'm Sia, she said finally. Rank B, solo hunter. Sometimes I take temporary partners for difficult contracts. Ray, he answered. No rank yet. Ray with no rank, she said. An interesting start. He didn't answer. He was looking at the bulletin board, thinking. 8 hours. Some had already passed. He needed to learn as much as possible while there was time. How the guild worked. How ranks were assigned. How to get into the tournament. How to understand the system he needed to fit his plans into. How do you get a guild card? He asked. Sia looked at him with the same expression, then unexpectedly smirked. Not mockingly, almost warmly. Come inside, she said. I'll explain, for a cup of something hot. Ray nodded and followed her to the guild doors. Inside, the guild was noisy, cramped, and smelled of food and metal. Long tables, adventurers everywhere, eating, arguing, cleaning weapons, sleeping right on the tables. At the far end, a counter with several clerks processing queues, maps, announcements, trophies on the walls. Above the counter, a large board with names and ranks constantly updated. Sia found a corner table, waved to a server, turned to him. Adventurer's card. At the guild, for free. You fill out a form, take a basic ability test, get a starting rank, usually G or F. Then you grow through contracts and trials. How many ranks? G, F, E, D, C, B, A, S. She bent fingers one by one. S, a handful on the whole continent. A few dozen. Most never rise above C in their entire lives. What rank is needed for the arena? Officially, anyone can participate. Sia accepted cups from the server, pushed one toward him. Practically anything below B, there's no point going. They'll kill you in the first round. 3 months, he said. What, 3 months? Until the arena. 3 months, he repeated. Is it realistic to rise to the needed rank in 3 months? Sia looked at him for a long time. The amber eyes were serious. The mockery had gone. No, she said simply. Not for a normal adventurer. From G to B, usually 3 to 5 years if you're lucky. Ray nodded, picked up his cup, thought. For a normal adventurer, he repeated to himself. But my system works differently. The stronger the enemy, the faster the growth. I went from G to C minus in a few weeks through the cave. That isn't the norm. That's my norm. And for an abnormal one? He asked. Saya looked at him for another second. Then the tail swayed. Slowly, thoughtfully. Then, I don't know, she said honestly. I've never seen one like that. Ray set down his cup, looked around the hall, at the adventurers, at the ranks board, at the guild door through which someone was constantly entering and leaving, then looked at the announcement he was holding in memory. Red paper, Crown Arena, 3 months, 7 hours left in this body. He would use them properly. Tell me about the dungeons around Hansel, he said to Sia. The most dangerous ones you know. She looked at him with a new expression. Something had changed in the amber eyes. The mockery had completely gone, and in its place was something else. Curiosity, real, not superficial. Why do you want the most dangerous? She asked quietly. Because only those suit me, Ray answered. Sia's tail froze for a second, then slowly swayed again, and she began to speak. Sia talked for an hour. Ray listened without interrupting, only occasionally asked short clarifying questions, and she answered, gradually ceasing to notice that she was talking to someone she was meeting for the first time, as if to an old partner. This happened to her sometimes when the other person listened the right way. Most adventurers listened with half an ear, waiting for their own turn to speak. This one listened differently, quietly, attentively, with the feeling that every word was being placed somewhere inside and would stay there forever. Around Hansel, there were 4 active dungeons. The first, Stone Catacombs, rank D, standard urban dungeon, cleared by the guild once every 2 weeks, well studied, safe for adventurers of rank C and above, a tourist attraction by Sia's standards. The second, Ash Forest, rank C+, a former forest destroyed by magical fire 300 years ago, now populated by ash creatures, undead and fire elementals in extinguished form. Dangerous, unstable, not recommended for solo adventurers. The third, Hassan Rift, rank B, a deep crack in the earth 20 kilometers to the east of Hansel, descending several levels. The lower levels were unexplored. Several expeditions had not returned. The guild had officially banned solo entries. The fourth, Tower of Silence, rank A, an abandoned mage's tower in the mountains to the north. Access closed by royal decree. The last time a group entered was 8 adventurers of rank A 3 years ago. 2 came back. Both refused to say what they had seen inside. Ray listened and built a table in his head. Catacombs, 2 week, gain minimal. Ash Forest, interesting, but instability meant unpredictability, hard to plan. Hassan Rift, rank B, lower levels unknown. Tower of Silence, rank A, forbidden, 2 survivors out of 8. The Rift, he said when she finished. Sia blinked. You didn't even ask about the catacombs. I don't need the catacombs. Hassan Rift, rank B, she repeated slowly, the way one speaks to someone who didn't understand the first time. People don't go there solo even at rank B. You said you have no rank at all. I heard. Do you understand that you'll die there? Ray looked at her, calmly, without challenge, just looked. No, he said. A long pause. Sia held her cup in both hands and studied his face with an expression he was already beginning to recognize. That mixture of irritation and curiosity that appears in people when they can't understand someone but want to. You're either a madman, she said finally, or stronger than you look. The second, Ray answered. Prove it. He didn't answer right away, looked at the table, then raised his eyes. In 3 months, Crown Arena. If I turn up there and reach the final, is that enough? Saya looked at him for a long time. The amber eyes were serious, tail motionless, a sign that she was thinking, not reacting automatically. If you reach the final of the Crown Arena, I'll personally buy you drinks for a year in advance, she said, and publicly say I was wrong. Agreed, said Ray. Silence. Then Sia snorted briefly, not mockingly, more like breathing something out. At the very least, you're interesting, she said. That's rare. Ray finished his cup, stood up, looked at the ranks board on the wall, a long list of names, each with a letter beside it. Then at the exit. About 6 hours remained in this body. I need to go, he said to Sia. She also stood, unexpectedly quickly, as if the decision had been made before she realized it. I'll walk you to the gates. No need. I wasn't asking, she said simply. They left the guild together. On the street, Hansel lived its evening rhythm. Merchants were packing up stalls. Taverns were filling. Children ran between adults. Ordinary life of an ordinary city on an ordinary evening. Ray walked and memorized everything. The layout of streets. Where the guild was, where the market, where the city gates, where the guard stood and how often the shift changed. What creatures were sold as trophies by hunters. That gave an idea of what was found in the vicinity. What ranks most adventurers in the city had. Judging by conversations, the average level here was D to C, rarely B. At the gates, Sia stopped. You're going back to the forest, she asked. Yes. At night, packs of ash wolves from the ash forest roam here. Rank D. She spoke evenly, informatively, without unnecessary emotion. Avoid the north path, thank you. Silence. She looked at him, tail swaying slowly from side to side, working something out. Ray, she said finally, I'm going to Hassan Rift in a week. A contract for the second level, solo. If you want, you can come and watch, not to participate, just to watch. A pause. This isn't an invitation to partner up, just to watch. Ray looked at her for a second, then nodded. Where do we meet? At the eastern gates, dawn in 7 days. He nodded again, turned and walked through the gates into the darkening forest. Sia watched him go. The tail froze. Strange, she thought. Then she turned and walked back to the city. Ray reached a safe place, a deep gully in the forest sufficiently sheltered, and allowed the transformation to end ahead of schedule. He didn't wait the full 8 hours. No point expending energy. The human form dissolved, the slime shape returned. Familiar. His own. His true one. He lay in the darkness of the forest and processed information. Methodically, as always. Total from the first visit to the city. Guild structure. Understood? Rank system. Understood. 4 dungeons. Studied theoretically. Hassan Rift. Target for the coming week. Crown Arena. Target in 3 months. Contact established. Sia. Rank B. Half Fox. Potentially useful ally if the relationship is built correctly. And one more thing. Something he hadn't yet formulated aloud even to himself. Simply holding it as a fact in the list of data. When Sia suggested meeting in 7 days, she wasn't asking. She decided. That was the behavior of a person who had already made a decision and was simply announcing it. People do that when something inside has already said yes before the head had time to think it through. He logged it in the observation list. Without conclusions. Too little data yet. The next 7 days, Ray worked. Perhaps more accurately, it should be said he hunted. But hunting implies something spontaneous, instinctive. And he did it methodically, like a project with a deadline. Every fight was an operation. Analyze the target, plan, execute, review mistakes. Ash wolves from the ash forest found him themselves. Sia hadn't warned about the north path for nothing, but he had deliberately gone exactly there. A pack of 7, rank D, in the night forest, gray silhouettes with smoldering orange eyes, silent as everything born from magical fire. The skill gave data quickly. Ash wolves are pack hunters, coordinating through low-frequency sound signals below the threshold of human hearing. Disruption of coordination disorients the pack. Vulnerability. Water extinguishes the ash nature, reduces speed and attack by 40%. Pack leader. A large individual with double burn marks on its muzzle, always in the center of the formation. Ray found the stream 200 meters away. He had memorized its location on the way to the city. He began slowly shifting toward it, not fleeing, luring. The pack pursued confidently, the wolves moving in a semicircle, cutting off retreat. He let them close to 20 meters. Then, in a burst, went to the stream. Not a human burst. He was slime now in camouflaged guise, invisible in the night grass, and was in the water before the pack understood what had happened. From the water, he launched a broad wave, not strong, just wet, covering the lead wolves. The effect was instantaneous. 3 of the leaders lost speed, their ash nature extinguishing from moisture like coals in rain. Coordination broke. The rear wolves kept charging forward, the front ones braked. The pack collided with itself a meter from the bank. He took the leader separately while the others dealt with the chaos. Enveloped it, penetrated through the fur weakened by moisture. 30 seconds. When the leader fell, the pack scattered. Without the central signal, the wolves lost cohesion and fled in all directions. Progress. Plus 25 for the leader, plus 8 for each of the 3 slowed ones he finished off separately. Total. Plus 49% in one night. Good, he noted. But the pack without a leader, that's a lesson. I need to learn to work against multiple targets more effectively. I use the environment as a weapon. That's right. But if there's no environment, I have no answer to 7 simultaneous attacks. He absorbed the wolf bodies until dawn. Data fragments accumulated. Ash nature, claw, low-frequency signal. By morning, he had 6 of 10 ash nature fragments. 4 more, and he'd have an adaptation. On the 3rd day, he found something more interesting than wolves. In the thicket to the east of the path, in an old, moss-covered crater, lived a fire bear. Rank C solitary, territorial, with fur saturated with a fire affinity. Literally smoldering at the edges. The skill gave exhaustive data. Fire bear, rank C. Attack, physical, enormous. Fire aura, moderate. Flame burst once every 30 seconds, recharge. Defense, thick fur. Fire shell reduces physical damage. Weakness, belly without fire protection. Paw pads vulnerable to cold and water. Behavior, attacks only at encroachment on its territory or direct threat. Solo, no coordination. Rank C, he was class C-, almost equal. Progress for victory, plus 20% maximum. Little. But the fire bear offered something more important than points, the opportunity to test a new tactic. He provoked the bear carefully, not with aggression, but with scent. Slime could superficially imitate chemical traces. He had discovered this recently, accidentally, while absorbing plants by the stream. The smell of another bear on its territory was sufficient trigger. The bear emerged after 10 minutes, large, 3 times bigger than ordinary, with a roar felt as vibration in the earth. The fire aura flickered along the fur's edges in orange-red. Ray didn't attack head-on. That would have been suicide. He worked in circles. Shadow gliding allowed him to dodge the paw blows at the last moment. The bear struck where it saw the target, and the target blurred and ended up to the side. Acid glands, inherited from the spider through adaptation, worked against the paw pads. They didn't deal serious damage but made the bear redistribute weight, change stance, lose stability. The fight took 40 minutes. The longest fight since his rebirth. Ray took 3 hits he couldn't dodge in time. Each threw him several meters and tore biomass. After the second blow, he understood that slime regeneration wasn't enough to keep pace with such losses. He needed to finish this. The final maneuver came from observation. The bear performed a flame burst every 30 seconds without exception. This was not a random skill. It was physiology. The pressure of fire affinity was released involuntarily. Ray timed the rhythm, confirmed it over 2 cycles. Then, on the 3rd cycle, at the moment of burst, when the flame had gone and the 30-second recharge was just beginning, he went in from below, under the forelegs, under the belly, where the fur was thin and there was no fire protection. The bear roared for another minute, then fell. Victory. Fire bear, rank C. Progress, plus 22%. Total, 71%. He absorbed the bear slowly. The mass was enormous. Got fire affinity fragments. 4 of 10 in one go, the largest single gain. And something new in the data. Compatibility of fire affinity with the nature of the mimic slime detected. The system marked it as a potential adaptation upon accumulation. By the sixth day, progress stood at 89%, 11% short of the next evolution. He could close that with small targets, a few wolves, a couple of lizards. But he sat in the gully and thought about something else. Tomorrow, Hassan Rift. Sia, rank B, second level of the Rift. If he entered the Rift and encountered something of rank B there, the progress would be significant. Close out the evolution and immediately get a new form. But he wouldn't be alone. Sia would be nearby. That was a constraint. She must not see what he was. He thought about this for several hours, then made a decision that seemed the only logical one. Come to the Rift in human form, observe how she worked, gather maximum information about the second level, and afterward return there alone. Already in his true form. 8 hours of transformation. That was enough. At dawn of the seventh day, he stood at the eastern gates of Hansel in human form, the same cloak, the same adventurer's armor, and waited. Sia arrived exactly at dawn. Without lateness, without preamble, she simply appeared at the gates with a small pack and 2 blades behind her back. She saw him, nodded as to an old acquaintance, though they had met once. "You came," she said. Same word as before, same tone. As if she were slightly surprised each time and hiding it. As agreed. They walked toward the Rift in silence for the first half hour. The road went through fields, then through sparse forest. Then the terrain became stonier and drier. Ray walked and observed her surroundings, the way she moved. The skill worked constantly, clarifying data, adding details to what was already there. By the time they reached the first signs of the Rift, the cracks in the earth widening, the air smelling of ozone and something metallic, he knew about Sia's combat style more than she herself could have formulated in words. The Rift opened suddenly. The earth simply ended, dropping vertically into darkness. Not gradually, abruptly, like a cliff. Width at the edge, about 12 meters. On the opposite side, the same sheer wall descending into darkness below and disappearing into fog above. Along the edge, hooks with ropes had been driven in, traces of previous expeditions. Some ropes were broken. First level, down to 30 meters, said Sia, businesslike, securing her rope. There are ordinary stone creatures there, rank D to C. The second level begins after the Rift within the Rift. The walls spread there, it gets wider. Rank B creatures start at about 50 meters. What creatures? Mostly Rift chimeras, magically unstable. Affinity changes, hard to predict. Sometimes stone golem spiders. Once I saw something resembling a shadow dragon, but small, rank B+, left without a fight. What's the contract? A trophy from a Rift chimera of rank B. 1. Venom sac. Rare, alchemical ingredient, good pay. She looked at him. Are you descending or staying up top? Descending, he said. Can you fight? With weapons? He looked at her. Yes. That was a half-truth. He didn't know how to fight with a sword. He had no sword. But his true abilities required no weapon. In human form, he retained some of the slime skills. Not all, not fully, but some things worked. Shadow gliding worked. Acid protrusions on his palms worked, though they looked strange if someone watched closely. Limit analysis worked always, regardless of form. They descended on ropes into the darkness. Ray passed the first level as an observer, stayed slightly behind, watched how Sia worked. She moved magnificently. That wasn't an exaggeration, it was the skill's data. Every movement economical, no excess. 2 blades in hand like extensions of her hands, not tools. Stone creatures of rank D she passed through without slowing. 3 strikes maximum, usually 2. Tactic simple. Speed plus precision, strikes to the joints of the shell where there was no protection. Ray watched and memorized every detail. The second level began when the walls spread and the darkness became different. Deeper, more saturated, with a bluish tinge of magical instability. The air changed, heavier, with a taste of ozone felt even in the human body. The skill reacted immediately to the first creature they saw. Rift Chimera, rank B-. Unstable magical affinity. Currently Earth predominates, switch is possible. Attack, stone spikes, burst up to 8 meters range. Speed of affinity switching, approximately 30 seconds. At the moment of switching, vulnerable, defensive characteristics reduced by 70%. He managed to say to Sia before she attacked, "Wait 30 seconds. It switches affinity. At the moment of switching, it's open." Sia stopped, looked at him briefly. "How do you know?" "I see it," he answered. Silence. The chimera began moving toward them, slowly, with the heavy crash of stone legs. 20 seconds. 25. On the 28th second, something changed in the glow around the creature. The earthy brownish tinge flickered and for a moment went dark. "Now," said Ray. Sia struck. Both blades, enhanced with wind affinity, sliced the chimera where the shell was soft at the moment of switching. The chimera roared. Second strike. Third. It fell 12 seconds after Sia began the attack. Record speed for a rank B creature. Sia stood over the chimera's body and looked at Ray. "You see the moment of switching," she said. "Not a question." "Yes? An analysis skill?" "Something like that." A long silence. She crouched beside the chimera, began searching for the venom sac. Routine, she knew where to look. "Found it. Cut it out carefully. Put it in a special container." "With a skill like that," she said without looking up, "you can see the weakness of any creature." "Any." She stood, looked at him with the same amber gaze as in the guild. Only now there was something new in it. Not just curiosity. "Then you're more valuable than you look," she said simply. "I know," Ray answered. Something in her tail twitched. One quick flick that she, it seemed, didn't control. She noticed it herself, because she frowned slightly. "We're going up," she said in a business-like tone. They ascended. On the surface, Ray checked an internal timer. About 4 hours of transformation remained. Enough to reach the city and exit through the gates before the form began to destabilize. The return road to Hansel passed differently from the journey out. Sia talked more. Not about dungeons, about the city, about the guild, about how the trophy market worked, as if she had made some decision and was now carrying it out. Ray listened and absorbed. At the city gates, she stopped again, a mirror of the first day. "You don't live in the city," she said. "No. In the forest?" "Roughly." She looked at him for a few seconds. Tail motionless, thinking. "I need a partner for a rank B+ contract in 2 weeks," she said. "Not because I can't manage alone, because with your skill it'll take half the time and be twice as safe." A pause. "We'll split the reward evenly." Ray looked at her. "I'm not in the guild yet. I can vouch for you. They'll give you a temporary rank for the contract." A pause. "Then you'll go through normal registration." He thought for a second. 2. Temporary rank. Official presence in the guild. A partner of rank B who knew the city and the system. 3 months before the arena. This wasn't just useful, it was necessary. He couldn't keep entering the city for 8 hours and leaving indefinitely. He needed a permanent base, a permanent form, a permanent history. "Agreed," he said. Sia nodded, businesslike, briefly. Then turned toward the gates. "Tomorrow morning at the guild. I'll be there from 8. I'll be there." She left. Ray watched her go, the orange tail swaying with each step, and thought about the next step. Tomorrow at the guild. Official registration. That meant a permanent human form. Not 8 hours, permanent. And that meant one thing. He needed to find a way to extend the transformation, or make it permanent. For that, he needed the next evolution. For the next evolution, he needed 11% of progress. That night, he would return to Hassan Rift, alone, in his own form, and close those 11%. He turned and walked away from the gates into the darkening forest, toward the rift, toward the next step in a plan that was unfolding methodically, without haste, like a well-constructed analytical report. The brick fell on his head on a Friday morning. On the Friday evening of that same day, by another calendar in another world, a mimic slime of Class C entered a crack in the earth and began to hunt. Some things don't change regardless of the body's form. 4 hours later, deep in Hassan Rift, in a darkness no human had ever seen, Ray stood over the body of a stone golem spider of rank B and read the notification. Evolution progress, 100%. Fifth evolution available. Single path available, slime shapeshifter, rank B. Transformation skill, permanent form. The host may maintain a chosen human form without time limit. Switching between forms is on demand, instantaneous. Limitation. Maintaining human form requires a small constant energy expenditure. At critical exhaustion, form becomes unstable. Permanent form. Ray read it twice. Then in the darkness of the rift, alone, without witnesses, he allowed himself what he hadn't allowed before. Just a few seconds of doing nothing. Just existing. Kim Do-yeon, 28 years old. Analyst at a small logistics company. Died from a brick on Dongdaemun-daro. Now Ray. Rank B, slime shapeshifter. Permanent human form. 3 months until the Crown Arena. He accepted the evolution. When the form solidified and the human appearance became his own, not a borrowed body but his, he climbed out of the rift, emerged to the surface, looked at the night sky. Tomorrow. The Guild. Official registration. A new name on the board's list. In 3 months. The Crown Arena. He walked toward the city, without hurrying. There was enough time ahead. The Guild at 8 in the morning was different. Not quiet. It was never quiet. But different in mood. The day shift was just coming on, tables still half empty, the smell of food overwhelming yesterday's smell of metal. Clerks at the counter were pinning new contracts to the board, talking in low voices. 2 adventurers in the corner were sleeping right on a table, evidently arrived from a night assignment and hadn't made it to a room. Sia was already there. She sat at the same corner table as the first time, with a cup and a small notebook she was writing something in. She saw Ray at the entrance, nodded, closed the notebook. You came. Again the same word as yesterday, the same tone. As if slightly surprised each time and concealing it. As agreed, again the same answer. She stood. Led him to the counter, past sleeping adventurers, past the contracts board, past the map on the wall with marked dungeons. The clerk at the counter, a young woman with tired eyes and the precise movements of someone who had done the same thing 1,000 times, looked up. With Sia, rank B, said Sia. Voucher for new registration. The clerk looked at Ray. Professionally, not with curiosity but with assessment. She glanced over his appearance, his equipment, stopped at his hands. Adventurers usually look at hands. Calluses and scars say more than words. Ray had prepared for this too. Calluses. He had created them deliberately during the formation of his permanent form, knowing that details mattered. Scars too. 2 thin ones on the back of his left hand, 1 on the wrist. Enough to look like someone who had worked with their hands. Not enough to look like an experienced warrior. That too was deliberate. An experienced warrior without a known name raises questions. A newcomer with a non-standard skill, less suspicious. Name, said the clerk. Ray. Family name? He had anticipated this question, had thought about it last night. No family name, grew up without family. The clerk wrote it down without comment, apparently not a rarity in a world where dungeons killed entire families. Asked a few more standard questions. Age, place of birth, affinity. For age, he said 25. Place of birth, province of Huram, far to the east, far enough that verification would be difficult. Affinity, non-standard, transformational. The clerk raised an eyebrow at the last word. Transformational, she asked. Not elemental and not systemic? No. A rarity, she said. Not with surprise. Simply stated. Registration requires a demonstration of abilities. Basic test. She nodded toward a door at the end of the hall. Test yard. The test yard turned out to be a small open space behind the guild building. Packed earth, several wooden mannequins, targets on the walls. Another clerk, an older man with a tablet for notes, was waiting there already, as if he had known they were coming. Ray stood in the center of the yard. The clerk with the tablet watched him with the same professional detachment. Show what you can do, he said simply. Ray had thought about this too. What exactly to show? Transformational affinity was a formulation he had invented himself. At night, understanding that his real abilities needed to be named somehow for this world, he raised his right hand. Concentrated. The surface of his palm changed texture, became hard, scaled, dark. Not human skin, something between chitin and stone. He held it for 3 seconds, then returned it to normal. Then did the same with his left hand. Only this time the surface became sharp at the edges like a blade. The clerk with the tablet stared without blinking. "Only the extremities?" he asked. "No." Ray stepped toward the nearest mannequin, struck the wooden figure's chest with his right hand, bearing the hard chitinous surface. The mannequin split in two, not from the force of the blow, but from the hardness of the material. Then he turned to the target on the wall, extended his left hand with the sharp surface. Acid secretions left deep furrows in the wooden target, as if from claws. The wood at the edges smoked slightly. The clerk was writing on his tablet. For a long time. Then he raised his gaze. "Class C," he announced. "Rank assigned provisionally, confirmed by the first completed contract of rank C or above." A pause. "Unusual affinity. We haven't had such a one in this guild, or rarely have. It will be noted." "Good," said Ray. They returned to the counter. The clerk issued a guild card, a small metal plate with his name, rank, and the guild seal of Hansel. Ray took it, looked at it for a second. Ray. Rank C. Guild Hansel. The first official document in this world. The first confirmation of existence. Not biological, not systemic, but social. He existed for this world. Sia stood beside him and looked at the card with an expression he didn't immediately manage to classify. Then she said quietly, almost to herself, "Transformational affinity. I've never seen that. Now you have." She snorted, briefly. Took her cup from the table, still warm, and took a sip. Then, contract in 2 weeks. Before then, you need an official address of residence in Hansel. The guild requires it for permanent registration. "I know. I have a room upstairs," she said. Business-like tone, not looking at him, looking at the contracts board. "I rent the whole second floor, mostly storage. There's a free room there, inexpensive." A pause. "Strictly a business arrangement, convenient for work." Ray looked at her for a second. "Agreed," he said. Sia's tail swayed once, quickly. The following 2 weeks he lived 2 lives simultaneously. Daytime, in Hansel. Getting settled. Going to the guild, listening to conversations, studying the system of contracts and ranks. Reading everything he could find about the world, about the Crown Arena, about the structure of the Kingdom of Asong. Sia sometimes explained what he didn't understand, without excess questions, as if she accepted as given that he had gaps in basic knowledge. Nighttime, outside the city. In his true form, hunting, absorption, accumulation of progress. By the end of the second week, progress toward the 6th evolution stood at 63%. He worked carefully, didn't rush, chose targets wisely. Every victory over a rank B creature gave 20 to 25%. There were not infinitely many of those in the vicinity of Hansel, and he didn't want to clean out the territory completely. Adventurers would notice. The guild would start investigating the cause of the creature's disappearance. The contract with Sia took place on the 15th day. The dungeon was called the Jade Ruins, a former city, submerged by a magical cataclysm 200 years ago and now existing as a closed ecosystem underground. Rank B+, 1 level above the rift. The contract was to clear the upper tier of the ruins of Jade Sentinels, magical constructs created by those who built the city, still guarding something that no longer existed. Ray read the contract description and thought, constructs, not alive. Magical mechanisms. Biomass absorption wouldn't work, but analysis would. Machines have structural weaknesses that aren't hidden by instinct. They're static. They descended into the Jade Ruins through an old well 2 hours' walk from Hansel, narrow, with crumbling brick walls, opening below into a spacious vault with the greenish glow of jade crystals along the walls. The first sentinel appeared 3 minutes after the descent. The skill activated instantly. Jade Sentinel. Magical construct, Rank B. Material: jade stone with an embedded magical control circuit. Primary circuit located in the chest cavity. Destruction of circuit deactivates the construct. Vulnerability: the control circuit responds to magical influences of reverse polarity. Physical impact is of low effectiveness. The stone is durable. Speed: slow. Attack: limb strike, high power. Chest cavity, Ray said quietly to Sia. The control circuit is there. You need a magical attack, not physical. I have wind affinity, she replied equally quietly. Blades already drawn. Will that do? Precision is needed. A small concentrated burst to the center of the sternum. That I can do. The sentinel moved toward them, slowly, heavily, with the stone grating of each step. Ray stepped aside, letting it pass, giving Sia an angle for the strike. Sia went left, circled, found her position. She put one blade away, concentrated wind affinity in her right hand. The burst was small, almost invisible externally, a thin vortex no wider than a coin. The sentinel stopped mid-step, stood, fell. Sia looked at it for 3 seconds, then at Ray. In 6 years with the guild, she said, this is the first time I've deactivated a Jade Sentinel with a single strike. Before you didn't know where to strike, Ray answered. They passed the upper tier of the ruins in 2 hours. 12 sentinels, all deactivated without serious combat. Sia worked precisely, heeded his directions without objection, which in itself was interesting, because an adventurer of rank B heeding an adventurer of rank C is not the norm. But she heeded it, adapted, considered. When the last sentinel fell and they were collecting jade fragments for the report, Sia asked without looking at him, do you always see the weakness at first glance? At first glance. General data. The longer I observe, the more precise. So in combat, you become more dangerous over time, she said. Not weaker. Yes. Silence. She was tying up the fragment sack. Then, Crown Arena, she said. You're serious about going? Yes. There will be rank A adventurers there. Possibly S. I know. You're C right now. 2.5 months, he said. Let's see where I am in 2.5 months. Sia looked at him for a long time. The amber eyes in the greenish glow of jade looked almost golden. Tail motionless, thinking. I'm going to submit an application too, she said finally. Ray turned his head slightly. Were you planning to? No. A pause. Now I'm planning to. He didn't ask why. The skill had already given the answer. Behavioral markers, a decision made, direct character. She had decided and announced it. Not a discussion, a fact. Good, he said. They ascended from the ruins as it was already growing dark outside. They walked to Hansel in silence. Not awkwardly, but like people who don't need to fill silence. Ray walked and thought about progress, about the 6th evolution, about how he needed to close 3 to 4 ranks from C to A in the time remaining before the arena, if he wanted to genuinely compete with rank A participants. At the entrance to the inn where Sia rented the 2nd floor and where he now lived, someone unfamiliar was waiting for them. A girl. She sat on the steps with a small pack and a bow on her knees. Long, composite, clearly expensive. Hair dark blue, almost black, straight, tied carelessly. Ears long, pointed, noticeably larger than Sia's, dark elf or a related race. Skin olive, eyes silvery, glowing faintly in the darkness the way some nocturnal creatures do. Dressed practically, no jewelry, only one thin bracelet on her left wrist with a small blue stone. The skill activated, half dark elf, age difficult to determine, visually 20 to 25, real age could be significantly higher. Class, B+. Specialization, ranged combat, archery with magical enhancement. Affinity, lunar. Rare variant of light affinity, works through reflection rather than direct radiation. Weaknesses in combat, close contact, heavy armor, B+. Half a rank above Sia. The girl raised her gaze when they approached. Silver eyes slid over Ray and paused, then moved to Sia. So Sia, she asked. Voice level, calm. The very same, Sia answered without particular warmth. Who are you? Aryan, the girl said. Hunter. Heard about you from the Saul Guild. They recommended you as the best solo contractor in Hansel. A pause. Gaze again on Ray, studying, without embarrassment. I need help with a rank A assignment. I can pay well. Rank A? Sia raised an eyebrow. You're B+ yourself. Why do you need help? Because it's not just a clearance, said Aryan. It's a reconnaissance of the Tower of Silence. Silence. Ray looked at the girl calmly, analyzing. Tower of Silence. The very place Sia had mentioned on the first day, rank A, forbidden by royal decree. The last expedition was 8 people and 2 survivors. Sia was silent for a few seconds. Then, the Tower of Silence is closed by royal decree. The decree expired 3 months ago, Aryan answered evenly. Automatically, without renewal. The guild hasn't updated the status yet, but legally access is open. How do you know about the decree? My job is to know such things. Sia looked at her for another second, then quickly glanced at Ray. A question. He barely perceptibly nodded. Interesting, he thought. Tower of Silence. Rank A. Unknown contents. High risk. But exactly such places give maximum progress. And if the decree has indeed expired, it's a legal target. Come inside, Sia said to Aryan. We'll talk at a table. They went up to the second floor, where Sia occupied the whole corridor with 3 rooms and a small common space with a low table and several cushions. Ray sat by the wall, to listen and observe. Sia and Aryan sat across from each other. Aryan spoke clearly, without unnecessary words, a professional. The Tower of Silence had belonged to a mage named Son Chanho. Died 300 years ago, no heirs. The tower was sealed after his death due to unstable experiments. 2 years ago, the instability intensified. Something inside activated. That was when the last expedition entered and didn't come back in full. The royal decree had banned access for 3 years, expired recently. What needs to be found there? Asked Sia. The mage's archive, said Aryan. Son Chanho was a specialist in transformational magic. A short pause. A glance at Ray, not accidental. His notes are worth a great deal to the right people. Transformational magic. A glance at him. Not accidental. Ray looked at her calmly. You knew I was here, he said. Aryan didn't deny it. The guild registers new adventurers. Unusual affinity is noted separately. A pause. Transformational affinity has never been registered at this guild. I checked. So you came not only for Sia. I came for both, she said simply. Silence. Sia looked at Aryan with a slight narrowing of her eyes, assessing. Then at Ray with a different expression. The tail swayed slowly, once. Terms, said Ray. Equal split, Aryan answered. We retrieve the archive together. I take copies of the needed records. The originals we sell through my channels. We split the proceeds. There are 2 of us. 1 of you. I found the tower. I found the buyer. I know how to enter it. A pause. A fair price for information. Ray thought for a few seconds, then looked at Sia. She was watching him with the same assessing gaze, waiting for his decision. For the first time since they'd met, she was waiting for his decision, not making one herself. He turned to Aryan. When? In 4 days. We need to leave tomorrow morning. 2 days travel to the mountains. Rank A dungeon in 4 days, said Ray. And in 2.5 months, I need to be in the capital for arena registration. The Tower of Silence won't take more than 2 days if we're efficient, said Aryan. I studied the plans. A short pause. And there will be everything you need for rapid growth there, if your skill works the way I think it does. Ray looked at her for a long time, analyzing every behavioral marker. Silver Eyes looked back, evenly, calmly, without trying to pressure or persuade. Just facts and an offer. The skill gave at the end one line it didn't usually give when analyzing people. Only creatures in combat. Target is concealing additional information. Volume of concealed. Significant. Intentions based on available markers. Not hostile, pragmatic. She wasn't saying everything, but she wasn't lying. Agreed, said Ray. Arian nodded. Businesslike, without a smile. Stood, adjusted the bow on her shoulder. Tomorrow at dawn, at the northern gates. She left. Sia looked at the door that had closed behind her. Then at Ray. You agreed quickly, she said. The Tower of Silence is worth it. 6 rank A adventurers died there. They didn't know where to strike, said Ray. Sia looked at him for a second, then unexpectedly laughed. Briefly, not loudly, but genuinely. You say that every time like it explains everything, she said. Because it does explain everything. She shook her head, but the tail swayed in time with a slight smile on her lips. She stood, stretched, arms upward, back, a habitual gesture of someone who had spent the day in motion. Sleep. Early dawn. She went to her room. The door closed. Ray sat alone in the quiet common space and looked at the bracelet that Arian had left. No, hadn't left. She had taken it with her. But he had memorized the blue stone. Small, non-standard cut. Not a decoration. Something functional. A reservoir or a marker. Lunar affinity. Tower of Silence. Transformational magic. A mage's archive. I need not just his notes, he thought. I need everything there is about transformation. If a mage 300 years ago worked with this, he might have gotten further than I am now. Might have left something that would accelerate my path. He stood, went to his room, lay down. The ceiling above him was wooden, with a crack along the right plank. Outside the window, Hansel was settling for the night. Lights going out, voices dying down, only the guard pacing steadily along the walls. Ray closed his eyes. Kim Doyen was reading an article about 10 signs of someone else's life when he died. On the third point. You do what is expected of you, not what you want yourself. He hadn't known what he wanted before. More precisely, he knew in theory, the way everyone knows. Something of his own, something genuine, something that has meaning. But in that life, between theory and practice stood too many mundane things. Rent, deadlines, tiredness on the metro. Here it's simpler. Here there is a goal that demands everything he is capable of. Here, every day has a task with real consequences. Here there's no need to search for meaning. Meaning finds you itself and names a specific percentage of progress. 89%. No, already 92 after the Jade Ruins. The system had credited a small number of points for destroying the constructs, despite them not being living creatures. 8% until the 6th evolution. The Tower of Silence with rank A creatures would close that with room to spare. He fell asleep with a plan in his head. There were no dreams. Slime shapeshifters, it seemed, did not dream. Or he simply didn't remember. Either way, the darkness was calm. Dawn came gray and cold. At the northern gates of Hansel, Arian was waiting for them both, with a pack and bow, in the same clothes as yesterday but with a light cloak added against the cold. She saw them, nodded. No greetings. They headed north, into the mountains, to the Tower of Silence, to what 6 rank A adventurers had not survived. Ray walked third, slightly behind, and thought that the 6 had not survived because they hadn't known where to strike. But he would find out. He always found out, if he gave himself time to watch. The mountains ahead were gray and cold, covered in low clouds. Somewhere between them stood a tower. The road into the mountains took 2 days. The first day they walked through the foothills, gentle hills covered in dry grass and sparse pines, with stone screes that became more frequent the higher they climbed. The trail was old, almost invisible, but Arian walked it confidently without consulting a map. Ray noted this immediately. She had been here before, or had studied the route so thoroughly she knew it by heart. Both variants spoke to serious preparation. The first day they walked in silence. Not tensely. Each was simply occupied with their own thoughts. Sia periodically drifted slightly off the trail, checked tracks, looked around, returned. A hunter's instinct, a habit of fieldwork. Arian walked straight, evenly, with the economy of movement that comes from years of long marches. Ray walked and observed both of them, the terrain, the way the composition of creatures changed as they climbed. The skill logged even what he didn't consciously notice. Heat traces in the ground, vibrations from creatures that weren't visible. By midday on the first day, he had an approximate map of living surroundings within a 300-meter radius. Nothing dangerous. Mountain goats, small predators of rank E, once far on the slope something of rank C that moved away at their approach. At the rest stop, Arian produced a map. Not on paper but on thin fabric, with details clearly drawn by hand. Spread it on a flat rock. Showed the route. The tower is here. Her finger landed on a marking in a narrow valley between two peaks. Tomorrow by midday we'll be at the entrance. A pause. Inside, 3 levels by available data. The first and second were partially explored by the previous expedition. The third? No. The archive is most likely on the third. What killed 6 of the 8? Asked Sia. The second level, Arian answered. More specifically, one particular hall on the second level. The survivors called it the Mirror Hall. What was there? They couldn't, or wouldn't, explain coherently. Her silver eyes moved to Ray. I'm counting on your skill to give us what they lacked. They tried to break through by force, said Ray, presumably. Show me what's known about the Mirror Hall. Arian took a small notebook from her pack, flipped through, found the right page, handed it to him. The entry was in someone else's hand, uneven, clearly written quickly or in a non-standard state. Ray read slowly. The survivor described a hall with mirror walls, not ordinary mirrors, but smooth magical surfaces, reflecting not appearance but something else. The reflections moved differently from us. It was written there. They attacked us. They knew our movements a second before we made them, as if they saw us from inside. Ray finished reading, returned the notebook. The reflections attacked, Sia repeated slowly. Magical copies? Or projections, said Ray. Constructs that read intent before action. A pause. That explains the casualties. An adventurer with a sword. His reflection knows when he's about to strike because it reads the muscular impulse before the movement. Impossible to win in direct combat. Then how do we get through? Ray thought for a few seconds. False intent, he said. If the construct reads intent, you need intent you don't have, to act without a decision, to move without planning. A pause. Or use something that has no intent at all. Sia looked at him with the expression of someone who understands something half a second before they can formulate it in words. Arian looked at him differently, calmly, assessingly. Exactly why you, she said quietly. Not a question. Ray met her gaze. Said nothing. They broke camp and moved on. The night in the foothills was cold. Not dangerously, but noticeably. They set up a small camp at a rock that provided shelter from the wind. Sia lit a fire quickly, professionally, small, almost smokeless. Arian produced food, dry rations, simple but sufficient. She ate in silence, then took the bracelet with the blue stone off her wrist and placed it on her palm. The stone glowed faintly. Lunar affinity. Ray saw the energy pulsing inside, slowly, evenly, like a heartbeat. A reservoir? Asked Sia. An indicator, Arian answered. Reacts to magical instability in the surroundings. A pause. Right now, background is normal. And normal is how much? Like this. Arian showed the faint even glow. When it starts pulsing fast, instability is rising. San Chanho's tower always gave a high background. Right now we're far, so it's quiet. Ray looked at the stone. Thought about the mage's archive. Transformational magic. Exactly what was there? A mage who had devoted his life to changing forms. Arian, he said. She raised her gaze. Why do you need copies of his notes? Not a question. A statement. She understood that immediately. Personal interest, she said. More specifically. A long silence. Sia stopped staring into the fire. Was listening, not interfering. Arian looked at the bracelet in her hand, then put it back on her wrist. Half-dark elves don't age quickly, she said. But they do age. A pause. I have a reason to look for records on body transformation. She said nothing more. Ray didn't ask. The skill had already given enough. Concealed information, Non-trivial, but not hostile. Something personal and sufficiently painful not to speak of aloud at a night campfire with people known for a few hours. Understood, he said. Arian briefly raised her eyes, almost imperceptibly. Something relaxed in the line of her shoulders. Sia silently added a branch to the fire. They slept in turns, standard field practice. Ray took the last shift before dawn. He sat by the dying fire and listened to the mountains. Wind, stone. Far away, the howl of something nocturnal. High, drawn out. He thought about the Crown Arena, about the 6 weeks remaining, about needing to close 3 ranks, from C to A, in that time. The Tower of Silence was supposed to give a significant jump. But 3 ranks in 6 weeks was an aggressive plan, even by his standards. Then he thought about Sia, about how she had decided to enter the arena after one conversation with him, about the tail that swayed against her will when she looked at him, about how she had heeded his directions in combat without questions, which for an adventurer of her rank was either a display of trust or a tactical decision, or something third. The skill gave data. Interpreting it correctly was a different matter. Dawn came quickly, mountain-like, sharp, without half-tones. Immediately light. They moved on. The tower opened at noon on the second day. They were walking through a narrow valley when Ray saw it first. Thermal vision gave a different picture than ordinary sight. The tower was cold, not simply not warm, actively cold, as if it were absorbing heat from its surroundings. Tall, narrow, built of dark stone that looked like basalt but was clearly something else. The surface was too smooth, without weathering despite 300 years. Around the base, a ring of dead ground. Nothing grew there, only dry stone and old bones of something large. "Stop," said Ray. They stopped. "What?" Sia put her hand on the hilt of her blade. "The perimeter." He looked at the ground around the tower. The skill was gathering data slowly. Too much magical background. The signal was blurred. Something under the ground. In a ring, Arian took out her bracelet. The blue stone was pulsing frequently, anxiously. "Protective contour," she said. San Chanho set it all the way around the perimeter. Activates when crossed without the correct key. What does it activate? A burst. Magical. Directed inward at the violator. She paused. The previous expedition passed through it with losses. 2 of them received a hit even outside. How did they get through? Crudely. By force. One of them was rank A+. He absorbed the blow with a shield. Ray looked at the ring. He analyzed slowly, patiently, allowing the skill time to work through the magical interference. Gradually, the data took shape. Protective contour. Magical, static, reacts to the presence of a living aura within the perimeter. Trigger. Aura. No aura. No reaction. Temporary suppression of aura when crossing the perimeter would allow passage without activation. Time of suppression needed, approximately 3 seconds. 3 seconds without an aura. For a living creature, theoretically possible only for the dead or for something capable of controlling its own magical presence. Ray could do it. The slime shapeshifter, his true form, had no pronounced aura. It was a biologically non-standard creature with no clear magical nature. In human form, he retained a human aura because he was sustaining the form. But if for 3 seconds he fully dropped the form, returned to his true appearance, crossed the ring, and again took human form, the contour wouldn't sense him. Problem. Sia and Arian couldn't do that. "I need more precise information about the contour," he said to Arian. "Are there gaps in the ring? Weak points?" She shook her head. "Continuous contour. No gaps. Depth of triggering? Don't know exactly." A pause. "A meter? A meter and a half?" Ray thought. "Then, if one passes above the ground without touching the surface?" Arian frowned slightly. "The contour goes into the ground. That's certain. But how high it extends above the surface?" She looked at the ring. If this is a standard Sun Chanho scheme, he set the contour at the level of the average person's body. 1 meter to 1.20 meters above the ground. So if one passes high enough above the perimeter, the contour won't trigger. "Theoretically," said Sia slowly. She looked at him. "You're thinking of something specific. Yes. He walked along the ring, not crossing it, searching. He found it after 3 minutes. On the western side of the tower, a rock face came close to the tower masonry. The distance between the rock and the tower wall, about 3 meters. The rock rose significantly higher than the contour line. He explained to Sia and Arian what he intended. To jump from a ledge on the rock, it was located high enough, directly to the tower wall, above the level of the contour. 3 meters. No problem for an adventurer of rank C with transformational affinity. I'll jump first, said Sia. I'm faster. No, Ray answered. I go first. To check the contour height. You're rank C, I'm rank B. I have analysis, he said. If the contour triggers, I'll understand why and tell you the exact height. You have better odds of correcting correctly. Silence. Sia looked at him with the expression he had learned to read. When logic persuades more strongly than instinct. Fine, she said. They climbed the rock. The ledge turned out to be adequate, 2 by 3 meters, flat. Ray stood at the edge, looked at the tower wall opposite. 3 meters across a drop, height about 2 meters above ground level. By all calculations, above the contour line. He jumped. 3 seconds in the air, long, detailed. The contour below him, invisible but palpable, like pressure, like a faint burning in the soles as he flew over it. It didn't trigger. He landed on a narrow cornice at the tower wall. The adhesive chitinous surface of his palms seized the stone, held. He steadied himself, looked down. Dead ground. The ring of the contour below him, 1.5 meters away. Clear, he said across the space to Sia and Arian. 2 meters is enough. Sia jumped second, confidently, with an ease that reminded him of how she had moved in the ruins. Landed beside him without difficulty. Arian last. A precise jump, calculated, not a centimeter extra. All 3 stood at the tower wall. The contour was silent. Not bad, Sia said quietly. The entrance to the tower was on this same side, an old door of the same dark stone as the walls, without a handle and without visible hinges. Ray pressed his palm to the surface. Warmth. The tower was cold outside, but from the door came a faint warmth. Magical, Arian approached the door, took a small item from her pack, a metal plate with engravings. She pressed it to the door at a specific spot. The door opened inward, silently, smoothly, as if the hinges had been kept from wearing out for 300 years. Inside was darkness, and a smell. Ray sensed it first. Not unpleasant, more strange. Ozone, old stone, and something else. Something alive. There's something there, he said quietly. Both stopped. What exactly? Arian's voice was even. Don't know yet. He peered into the darkness. Thermal vision activated automatically and showed something unexpected. A lot of things. The entire first level. Alive. Alive, Sia repeated. Not creatures. A pause while he sorted through the data. The tower itself. The magical background is so dense it's felt as living tissue. He looked at the walls. The tower is reacting to our presence. It just hasn't decided yet what to do with us. Silence. So we go in carefully, said Sia. We go in quietly, Ray corrected. Let me go first. If the tower responds to intent, I need to watch the reaction without interference. They entered. The first level was a corridor. Long, narrow, with a ceiling too high for ordinary architecture, about 4 meters, and covered entirely in flickering runes. The runes didn't glow constantly. They flared and died slowly, like breathing. On both sides of the corridor, doors to closed rooms. Ray counted them as he walked. 8 on the left, 8 on the right. The skill worked differently here. Didn't focus, gave a general background. Too much magic in one place, signals overlapping each other like radio interference. We don't open the rooms, he said, without stopping. For now. Why? Arian asked quietly. Because they want us to open them. A short pause. Explain. The runes above each door are active, not passive. They react when we walk past. If the rooms were neutral, there'd be no reaction. These are lures or traps, possibly both. He kept walking. The archive is on the 3rd level, 2nd level first. Sia walked behind him to the right, Arian to the left, instinctively positioning themselves to cover his flanks. He noted this without commenting. The stairway up was found at the end of the corridor, wide, stone, with banisters of the same smooth basalt. The runes on the steps glowed brighter than those on the walls. The second level met them with light. Not torches. The air itself glowed, faintly, silver-white, evenly, without a source. Ray stopped immediately upon exiting the stairway and didn't move further. The mirror hall. This was the entire second level. One large hall without partitions, and the walls, and the floor and the ceiling were mirrored. Completely mirrored, without a single dark spot, without a single seam. They stood at a point where every direction of gaze gave reflection. Infinite, multiple. Ray, and beside him Sia, and beside him Arian repeated in the mirrors to infinity until perspective swallowed them in white depth. Beautiful? Dangerous? "We don't move," said Ray. They stood. Silence, radiance, infinite reflections. Then one reflection, just one from the far mirror, moved. By itself? Without an original. Sia tensed. He felt it by the change in her breathing. "I see it," Ray said quietly. "Don't react." The reflection stepped forward. Then again. It moved like a person but with a slight unnaturalness. Too smoothly, without inertia, without the small imperfection present in any living movement. The skill tried to get data and gave blurry, incomplete results. Construct of unknown type. Magical nature, possibly based on reading and reproducing. Insufficient data. "Is it copying us?" Arian asked. Her voice was level. "Professional control." "No," Ray said slowly. "It's anticipating us." He watched the moving reflection. "It knows we'd enter here. It has already built our model from the data of previous visitors. From aura, from intent." A pause. "This isn't a mirror. It's an archive of reactions. It stores the patterns of everyone who came here and reproduces them against us." "Patterns," Sia repeated. "So all 6 are there?" "Possibly." The reflection stopped 10 meters away from them. Watched. If a faceless construct can have a gaze, it was directed at them. Then it split. Without warning, without sound, one figure became 2, then 3, then 6. 6 fallen rank A adventurers. "That's why they were killed," Ray said quietly. "They entered with weapons and intent. The construct copied them and struck using their own style, only without the delay of making a decision." "How do we get through?" Arian asked. "I need a minute," he thought. 6 rank A constructs. In direct combat, impossible. They'd anticipate by a fraction of a second every time. Intent and action. The construct reads that. So something needs to be placed between intent and action, severing the link, or removing intent entirely. Slime has no intent in the sense the construct reads. Slime moves instinctively, without forming a conscious decision for each movement. He had drilled this in the caves, to move without thinking, to act without formulating a plan in the moment of acting. But in human form, this was harder. The human brain forms intent automatically, so he needed to act from his true form. "Sia, Arian, step back to the stairway," he said. "Ray," Sia began. "Step back." He didn't turn. "I need to do this alone." Silence. Then footsteps backward. They stepped back. 6 constructs looked at him. Ray stood alone in the middle of the mirror hall, in human form, in the silence, in the silver radiance. Then he dropped the form. Not completely. Not here, not in front of them. Only partially. He reduced the human aura to a minimum, loosened the grip of the form just enough that his true nature began to show through the surface, not visibly externally. He remained a human. But magically he was becoming something different. Something the constructs had no template for in their archive. The constructs froze. Ray took a step forward. They didn't react. They watched. If an archive of reactions can watch. He walked slowly, in a straight line, toward the far wall where the stairway to the 3rd level was supposed to be. Each step, without intent for the next. Just a step. then another. No planning, no decisions, just movement. The constructs began to move, slowly, uncertainly, like a system trying to find a matching pattern and failing. They didn't attack. They tried to classify. He passed half the hall. Then one construct, the nearest, lurched in his direction. Ray didn't think, simply removed himself. Shadow gliding, complete, 3 seconds. The construct struck air. Ray was a step to the right. He continued moving. The construct tried again. Again, it missed. They couldn't read him. Not because he was faster, but because there was no intent to read. Every movement was born in the moment of the movement itself, without prior formulation. This was what he had learned in the caves. To move as a creature, not as a person. He reached the far wall, the stairway to the 3rd level. There it was, right in the mirror surface, invisible until you came close. He touched the wall, fingers passed through the mirror as through water, cold, viscous. He glanced back. Sia and Arian at the stairway to the 1st level. 6 constructs in the middle of the hall, motionless, clearly in a waiting state. "Come here," he said across the hall, slowly, without weapons in your hands. "And don't think about anything." "That's impossible," said Sia. "Then think about anything except the constructs, about food, about the weather, about something completely unrelated." Silence. Then footsteps. Sia went first. Ray could see from her movements that she was trying. She was almost whistling to herself, almost inaudibly. The constructs turned toward her, began moving, started reading. One lunged forward. "Sia," Ray said calmly. "Tail." "What?" "Think about your tail. What is it doing right now?" A pause. A fraction of a second. Then Sia's tail swayed involuntarily. She was distracted. Her thought switched to something everyday and bodily. The construct lost the pattern. It hesitated for half a second. She got through. Arian didn't need a hint. She had heard the exchange, understood the principle. She walked with the same closed internal detachment Ray had noticed in her from their first meeting. The constructs probed her perimeter, but found something inconvenient to read. She knew how to be opaque. All 3 at the stairway to the 3rd level. The constructs in the hall stopped. They ceased moving, as if they had returned to waiting mode for the next visitors. Ray looked at them for a last second, then turned to the stairway. "Tail," Sia said behind him. Her voice had a tone he didn't immediately manage to classify. "It worked," he said. "That was—" She didn't finish. "Effective," he said. "I was going to say humiliating," she said. "But yes. Effective." Arian was silent, but Ray from the corner of his vision noticed that the corner of her mouth twitched slightly, almost imperceptibly, for the first time since they'd met. They began climbing to the 3rd level. The 3rd level was different. Not dark, not mirrored, simply empty. One large hall with a high domed ceiling. In the center, a table. On the table, books, scrolls, objects of unknown purpose. Along the walls, shelves, also with books, tightly packed, dusty. And in the chair by the table, a skeleton. Sitting. Upright. In the pose of a person who had set down his pen and decided to rest a little. 300 years ago. Ray came closer. The skill gave unexpected data. Not from the skeleton, from the chair. A magical artifact, anchor type. It retains the magical aura of an object after the physical body's death. The aura is present, faint, fading. "He's here," Ray said quietly. "Who?" Arian was already heading for the shelves. "San Chanho, or rather, what remains of him. His aura is bound to this place." Sia stopped beside him. She looked at the skeleton in the chair seriously, without revulsion. "Did he choose this?" she asked. "It seems so." Ray looked at the anchor chair. 300 years in the tower. Watching those who came. "Lonely," Sia said quietly. Ray didn't answer. He was thinking about something else. About the anchor aura that was fading. The skill gave a calculation. The aura would disappear in approximately 1 to 2 years. After that, the tower would lose its controlling structure. magical instability would increase critically. Found it, said Arian from the shelves. She held a thick book in a dark cover. She opened it. Read quickly, turning pages. This is his personal research diary. A pause. No, this isn't a diary. She read further, frowning. This is an instruction. For whom? Asked Ray. Arian raised her gaze. Silver eyes moved to him, for a long time assessingly, with something new in the expression. For the one who passes the mirror hall without weapons and without intent, she read aloud. If you are here, you are not human. Or you have learned to be something greater. In either case, this is for you. Silence. Ray looked at the book, then at the skeleton in the chair, then at the book again. He was waiting, Ray said slowly. Not just guarding the archive. He was waiting for a specific person. Or creature, Arian said quietly. And again that gaze at him. Ray took the book from her hands, opened it to the first page. The handwriting was small, dense, the ink unfaded, magically preserved. The first line. My name was Sun Chanho. I spent 170 years studying the transformation of forms before I understood that I was asking the wrong question. Not how to change form, but what remains when form changes. The answer is in this book. Take it. Ray read further. Quickly, absorbing pages. Sia came closer, stood beside him, read over his shoulder without asking permission. Arian began carefully copying individual pages. She had special thin paper and fast-drying ink, clearly prepared in advance. The further he read, the clearer one thing became. San Chano hadn't merely studied transformation. He had discovered something he called in the book true absorption, the ability not just to copy a form, but to take on part of the essence of the absorbed. Not personality, not memory, but the magical structure, the core of abilities. If ordinary absorption gave adaptations, physical changes, then true absorption gave access to the magical system of the absorbed. Ray's system was already moving in this direction. But San Chanho had walked this path completely and left a description of every step. This, Ray thought, not lifting his eyes from the pages, changes everything. The system notification came quietly, almost delicately. He hadn't expected it here. Data compatible with host's absorption skill detected. New level of skill available upon mastery. True absorption. Description. Absorption of target's magical essence. Partial access to its abilities without physical adaptation. Applicable to the defeated or the voluntarily yielding. Requirement for mastery. Study of material and practice. Limitation. No more than 3 absorbed essences active simultaneously. 3 essences simultaneously. He stared at that line for a long time. 3 different magical systems, in addition to his own skills. Ray, Arian called from the shelves. There's something else here. Look. He went over. On a separate shelf, not books, but objects. Crystals, sealed vials, a small chest, and a note. New, not dusty, clearly left last, dated 3 years ago. To those who come after the last expedition, they took the wrong things. Left what was needed. The chest is for the one who passed the hall correctly. Don't open it if you are not the one. Arian looked at the chest, then at Ray. Yours, she said simply. Ray took the chest. Small, warm, unusually warm for a metal object. He opened it. Inside, one item. A ring of dark metal with a stone at the center. Not blue like Arian's. Deeply black. Matte. Without luster. The skill reacted instantly. Artifact, form anchor. Unique, created by Sun Chanho. Function. Stabilizes the host's transformation during critical exhaustion. Prevents involuntary change of form. Additionally, stores the last chosen form as the priority form during recovery. Compatibility with host. Absolute. A form stabilizer. Protection against the most dangerous thing that could happen. An involuntary return to his true appearance at the wrong moment. Ray put on the ring. It fit as if it were his own. The dark stone didn't glow. It simply existed, heavy, calm. In the chair by the table, the skeleton's anchor aura flickered once, faintly, like a farewell nod. Then it went out completely. The silence in the hall became different. Empty. The tower without its master. Leaving? Sia asked quietly. Yes, said Ray. They gathered what they had taken, the book with Ray, copies with Arian, and began descending. The mirror hall was empty. The constructs had vanished along with their creator's anchor aura. Simply empty mirrors reflecting three travelers. First level. Corridor with rooms. Doors still flickering with runes, but already dimmer, already going out. Without a master, the tower was beginning to die. They exited through the same door, jumped back to the rock, passed through the perimeter. The contour didn't trigger, perhaps also fading. Outside, it was just as cold and gray. The mountains hadn't gone anywhere. Ray stopped a few steps from the tower, looked back. The dark tower stood as it had stood for 300 years. But now something in it had changed. Not visibly, at the level of sensation. Emptiness. A place that had waited, and been waited for, and let go. Sia stood beside him, silently, tail motionless, thinking. What's in the book? She asked finally. A path, Ray answered. Yours? Yes, a pause. He knew you'd come, she said. Not a question. He knew someone would come, Ray corrected. Someone similar. And left everything for that someone. Yes. Sia looked at the tower for another second, then at him. You're not entirely human, she said quietly. No accusation, no fear. Simply naming what she had long been sensing. Ray looked at her. No, he answered. Silence. Long but not heavy. Somewhere in the mountains a bird cried. Wind passed through the valley, raised dust at the tower walls. All right, said Sia, and walked down the path. Arian walked past him next, and cast a glance. Silver eyes, attentive, calm, without a word. Ray stood for another second, looked at the dark stone of the ring on his finger, then followed them. Ahead were 2 weeks to the capital, 2 months until the arena, and a book in his hands that opened a path to somewhere further than he had planned. He read as he walked.